That was goofy. So in the end, Greg, it might have actually been good that happened because I'm pretty sure I did a test recording and listened to it and it was fine. So maybe it got fucked up when I stopped and restarted, or maybe it was fucked up the whole time. Who can say? But now it looks right. I'm going to do my other test. I'm going to tap my microphone. There we go. Yes. That is, now I know it's using the correct microphone. I just gently tap it, and if I see it bounce, I know I'm on the right one. All right, well, that's cool. This episode is definitely not cursed from the start. Are we all recording?
Yep, recording.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, hey, a clap. That's neat. I like claps. They tell me that things are recording, which is what they're supposed to do in a microphone. Great. Hello, I'm James Jones, and it is September 28th, 2023. I'm joined today by John Lindemann.
We corner office Jim Ryan.
There's a lot less enthusiasm this time when you say it, John.
Yeah.
I'm just going with straight regicide. With the trendsetters and the Kingslayers.
Yep.
That's what we're at. It's a heavy burden. But, sometimes Kings gotta go. Guillaume, how you feeling about this world of regicide that we now occupy?
I'm fucking pumped.
There we go. See,
finally,
John,
it's happening.
John, that's how you improve on the second take.
What? You just Guillaume just drops an F-bomb and all of a sudden he's a badass?
Yeah, actually. Have you, John, you've watched wrestling most of your life. Don't you know that's how that works? All he has to do is call one of us a bitch and he's a certified, champion candidate.
Fair enough.
Yeah. If he burns one of us in a limousine, he's really going to be on top of the world. Last but not least, Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
How's it feel to be part of the effort that dethroned Jim Ryan?
Yeah, who here amongst us can claim to be Jaime Lannister in this scenario?
I think this is a collective effort. This podcast is ultimately what determines if executives get to keep their job. So if you want to keep your job, you want us to not turn our daggers on you, they are specifically daggers, not knives, then you should send us in non-sequential bills, preferable, or gold, or just cash stuffed in pockets. I'm fine with any of them.
It's quite a lot. It's not that unusual to have gold bars at your house, is it? Because sometimes you're worried about people confiscating your wealth, so you've got to keep it in gold bars.
I prefer doubloons, but whatever.
I don't understand the big deal. If you go look at the federal government's own emergency preparedness website, it says keep a small amount of cash on hand for emergencies, something in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000. I don't understand. It's sometimes you can't get to the bank because there's an emergency, so you need a little bit of cash. And $500,000 is perfectly acceptable if you want to keep your job. Current chief executive of a video game company that yet to be named, but you will be unless you pay up. Don't send me any fucking crypto shit, Peter Molyneux. Peter Molyneux's launching a crypto game in the year of our Lord 2023.
This is the least surprising thing I've heard.
It is.
Yeah.
You're right. What if I told you he sold all the crypto land 2 years ago and literally could have taken the money and ran, but didn't? In a way, this is almost like anti-Peter. So 2 of the candidates for need to be corner officed really just outshined themselves this week. So we got one, working on number 2, and crypto scam's a pretty quick way to go. This week, besides extorting executives for additional safety bonuses, we're going to go ahead and do some new business. Last week we made an attempt to do listener mail and try to really run through some stuff, and we didn't do that. But today we're going to do some new business, and I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. So I want to do a quick summary on the .hack GU last Recode because I've played it all, which is exactly what I said I wasn't going to do. I lied to you. Well, I didn't lie. I didn't plan to play it all. I played it all. Why? Well, it's not very good. This is already completely off the rails, but it's not very good. Why? Well, it's got infinite dungeons. And what do I mean by that? Like dungeons that go forever? No. The dungeons are generated by word combinations, and I have hundreds of words. It's a mechanic from the in-game inside of the game, is that you warp. It's an MMO based on what MMOs were perceived of in 2008. So if you want to go to a new zone, it's essentially a combination of 3 words, and you get words for doing things, and then you can combine them, and that generates different spaces. So these aren't exactly like the most involved dungeons, and the combat's pretty straightforward. It's mash with skills, and there's a little bit of like technique, but not really. No, the reason I got suckered into playing this whole thing, and that might be the right word for it, I don't know. Maybe I fooled myself. is it's doing really weird and interesting things with its plot. And I'm not going to say good things, but I'm going to say interesting. And in a way, that's more important than being good. There are things that are good. There is a philosophy in play here that I'm not even sure the game itself is prepared to explore, or even was attempting to, but sort of inadvertently does. Largely dealing with sort of the archetypes of conflict in fiction. So there is a god in this. So in the game, inside the game, so you are a person who signs into an MMO to play it, and that MMO is currently essentially falling the fuck apart at the seams. There is a divine, omnipresent, omnipotent entity, which is an AI, was created by a person. So now we have a human creating God, which is another one of those weird literature archetypes. And there are other effectively demigods that are out there that are in conflict with our human players. So you have like this weird, can humanity create its own God? And the answer is quite clearly yes. And then can humanity oppose a God? And the answer is maybe. There's a lot of conflict between people. There's a lot of individuals who know a whole lot and aren't telling it to you, and you're trying to deduce what they're doing. And it does a really interesting thing where 90-ish% of the information you get is from the perspective of the main character. And I said when I talked about this game last time, I fucking hate him. And I still hate him. He gets better, which is impressive because he's fucking miserable. And he's miserable for an entire goddamn anime series. And I would say 2 full PS2 games that are each about 20 hours long. He just sucks. He just sucks. And he finally turns around as a person somewhere in the 3rd game where it's like, hey, you know what? All these people care about me and are concerned the fact that I've decided to challenge and kill God. Although he hasn't fully embraced the fact that he's fighting something that is effectively divine. What makes it interesting is that there's a lot going on in the meta-narrative beyond what's happening immediately in front of his eyes. And there are hints and pieces of information scattered throughout the larger play structure, which is the product, .hackgu games. Basically, every time you boot them up, you're dropped on a home screen of a PC. And it's this like... Again, it's a future operating system as imagined from 2008, so it's really fucking weird. It kind of looks like what the last iteration of the PS3 menu is, which I thought was really funny. And so there's news. So there's effectively rolling news stories, and some of them have video, some of them are just text. There are multiple message boards that people are posting in. There is a wiki, although I don't think they use that word, that has all the lore for the game that he is playing. And then, of course, there's the game itself. And the lore for the wiki is being carried out to a certain degree by the AI running the game that has effectively become deified because it's been told to make this the plot, essentially. So that actually has real material value. So a lot of stuff you're piecing together in the same way that he would because you're getting the same information as him. The game breaks down a little bit because occasionally we get shots that he doesn't see, which means that you know things he doesn't, which kind of takes the mystery away, because what's actually fooled me into playing this whole thing pretty much straight through is that it's constantly serving me up little mysterious pieces of like, hey, I just gave you a hint about something that's happening. And you've been seeing this thing happen, and you've been going, well, why the hell is that happening? And the characters are talking about, I don't understand why this is happening. Well, I just showed you a character who seems fully cognizant of why it's happening. Why does he know? 2, who the hell is he? And 3, what does he know, and why won't he tell me it? And in many cases, that character, that mysterious character, is a de facto father figure for our hero, who they are now in another literature archetype. I'm going to kill my dad, which is effectively what it devolves into. So there is a certain amount of, I'm constantly being fed information. There are 2 characters in particular who seem to know a lot, but they themselves may not know everything, and they seem to be in conflict over who knows the most and who can leverage it to effectively outmaneuver the other. Eventually, we introduce another character who seems to know a lot of stuff and is just using it for personal betterment. So there's a lot of character interaction stuff that works out kind of nicely. There's a lot of trying to figure out mysteries ahead of the plot that works out well if you care about that. And that's the thing. You can play this game and not worry about the meta-narrative and all that stuff and just let it feed you the stuff as it comes up. But the part where it clicked for me was the realization that many of the characters in this game who have been imbued with their effectively Jason and the Argonaut style, you have extra power beyond normal humans roles, are effectively carryovers from the previous set of games. In fact, a lot of characters are carryovers from the previous set of games. Now, these are 6 years apart. So these are humans who played the first game, and because of some shared DNA, have gone into the other game and maybe talking to someone they knew in the previous game, but because identities all got lost, they don't recognize it. And seeing how there are actually kind of decent character studies in personality disorders and human vulnerability and stuff like that actually kind of work in spite of the game's writing. That's kind of that weird thing of like, you created a character situation, then you did something fucking bogus with it. But like the idea here and how these characters are interacting and realizing that this person I'm talking to is actually this other person from the previous generation of content. And because of that, he actually knows more than he's been letting on. And I know that because I know that what he knew from the previous ones. So if you played all of those games in sequence, realizing who these people are would be really kind of amazing. There are people on the message boards who don't use the same screen name as their character in the game. And sometimes you just have to piece together, oh, that's so-and-so, based on how they talk, or what they're saying, or what they're interested in. There's one character who gives themselves away pretty immediately because of their obsession with another character. She is a young girl who has kind of a weird crush on an older player because he's very pretty. Because it's a player character model. Like, it doesn't really matter, but whatever. But then there's also like components, like small macro mysteries about individuals. There's a character who is actually 2 people, and it's set up as older sister, younger brother, and then eventually it's like, well, actually we're twins, and they have to split the character. The implication being that essentially they only have the resources for one character. But eventually we find out, none of that's true. This whole thing's a setup. And there's a sort of a conversation about why that setup happened and why someone would do that and the insecurities that led to that moment that feed in. So like there's things this game does where it tries to be philosophical, or I don't know what use the word poetic, but almost. Or where it tries to set up mysteries where it's like, somebody really thought hard about this. Somebody really spent a lot of time saying, we're going to not just craft a new narrative with the second generation of stuff. We're going to tie it back in at levels that were completely unnecessary. We're going to go in here and say like, this character right here, Endurance, is actually Elk. Why? Well, we're going to drop you a bunch of hints. And if you played that game, you'll know that. If you didn't, you won't figure it out unless, and this is where it goes back into being a weird meta-narrative, the PS2 games for the first generation came with like DVDs, and they had a short OVA series, and you got 1 episode per DVD. This one had this PS2 disc that was essentially a report that a developer on the game had. So a developer on the first game, after the creator of the game had passed away, was brought in to try to figure out why the AI running things wasn't functioning right anymore. Effectively, it's more than an AI, it's a personality. It can make decisions, it can have opinions, and it just decided, I'm fucking sick of this, and peaced out. And the whole world fell apart. And so he was part of a team trying to figure out how to bring it back. Basically how to coax it into working again. And the DVDs were his research notes. And it was like, so like the first DVD was just essentially a replay of what happened over the previous games. Just like it just random nuts if you didn't play them. There it is. And then the other ones were background story about what happens between the two generations of stuff. And if you actually watch those as they unlock on the collection, they're locked based on how far you've gotten. In sequence, they fill in blanks in a way that's really, I've never seen a product do it before. So I was more kind of captivated by what they were doing than how they were doing it. Like the thought of, okay, so this is the research notes from this person. He is describing a phenomenon. I'm trying to figure out who he's talking about. And then as I sort of piece together other things from other sources, I'm like, oh, he's talking about that guy. I get it. Well, why is he focused on that guy? And then the research notes later might give me more hints, or that person might do something and I realize, oh, that's why he's a fucking lunatic, or he's another insider. He works at the company. He's got information that I didn't know he had. He's acting. He's planning something. And you start to see threads come together. It's a really kind of, it's not, the narrative's pretty brute, but the world building is extremely graceful, if that makes sense. Like, they really ran threads everywhere, and I think I just really appreciated that. Like, my mind enjoyed picking on them and going like, okay, but where's that going? Who is that person? Why are they highlighting him? Why has that person been granted this power and not that person? Why, there's a sequence where they give, the company is in such a panic that the world is falling apart. They give control to a literal child who has shown that he can manipulate the failures. And they're like, well, this kid might have a plan. And they just give it to a sociopathic kid. Like, you're in charge now. Have fun. What's he do? He does exactly what a sociopathic 10-year-old would do. We're going to turn on PvP in the cities. Fuck it. It goes miserable. All the cities become bloodbaths. It's like, well, that seems like a terrible plan. Why would you do that? Well, because the 10-year-old thought it was a great idea. And, we had our conversation about corner officing. You can actually see in the postings, in the emails that come from the company when they're basically lying about why they had the periods where the game just is turned off. Like, we can't get in. And they'll send an email later talking about our unplanned server maintenance due to like a hard drive failure. It's like, no, it's due to the fact that the virus went out of control. Everything is on fire. That's why. I just appreciated the different degrees the different angles they had to write content from. Because if you write it from one person's perspective the whole way, you really only have to think about that. But if you're threading together the motivations of, I'm going to guess, probably 25 characters, the company, and then the historical precedent from the entirety of the media project up to that point, it really requires a fairly comprehensive worldview of like, okay, what is this character doing right now? Why are they doing it? Where are they going? And I think that was what kept me motivated. Like, even though the gameplay is fairly pedestrian, you can get around it by just building using those words I talked about to build a stage that's like 6 levels higher than you, or 7. Sometimes I was going 7 levels higher than me, and just completely cranking my level up 10 levels in 20 minutes, and then just being able to steamroll the story. So I maxed out, every disc has a new level cap. I maxed out my level basically within the first few hours of playing that game, and then just steamrolled the story and the side quests. Like, there's a weird part of creating side quests that exist outside of the confines of what's programmed in the game, while also having side quests that are just like regular shit you would do in an MMO, where you hear somebody talk about something in a message board post, and now you got to go research it and figure out what's going on. Versus, I'm going to go talk to the quest guy, and he's going to go tell me to kill 7 of these weird fucking bird people. Got it. I'm going to go do that. That contrast is kind of fun, too. I did say I was interested in what the 4th game is. because obviously they didn't have a fourth game when they released it. It's like, is the fourth game something that's not released? What is that? No, the narrative pretty much ends at the end of the third game. There is a character that's still in the trapped in the world thing. So there's the whole premise is people basically blacked out playing this game, and you had to do stuff in the game to let them out. There is a certain amount of magic here. There's one character left trapped in there. It's his own fucking fault. And it's essentially like a 3-hour like postscript where the game itself is shutting down because it's effectively fallen apart so bad they can't even keep basic functionality working. So a bunch of stuff that's in the game previously is no longer accessible because it just doesn't work anymore. And so your job is basically just to get him out. So I said it's probably 2 or 3 hours. It's really just kind of like a let's go back and bring everybody back together to see what they've been up to for the last 12 months. So it's pretty insubstantial. It doesn't add to the narrative. I think actually it undermines some elements in a way by doing that. So it's kind of a loss. Yeah, so that's kind of why I did that. That's kind of why I played that. It was interesting to run through in ways I didn't expect. Glad I did. Not sure I'd recommend it. It's a very weird product. I did want to speak briefly about another very weird product. I wrote up about this. I'm not going to rant too much about it. Quest for Camelot's really bad. Like, it's really bad. It's bad in ways I didn't think about. Like, I talked about in the previous game, like, you thinking about how someone would think through a project like this. How would you put a project like this together? I look at Quest for Camelot, and I think, why would you put a project like that together? Why would you build it that way? What's the reason? Like, so I'll give you a basic example. This is a Game Boy Zelda game. Essentially, they played Link's Awakening. They obviously played Link's Awakening. So this is
for Game Boy Color. This is from '98, right?
Yeah. They'd obviously played Link's Awakening. It looks like dog shit. And I wrote about this in the little article I wrote where
from
like
Titus Interactive. Oh, say it ain't so. Published
by Nintendo in the North America.
Ooh.
It is the characters like Mr. Potato Head. Except for the dog, who I said looks like a gargoyle. I was say a gargoyle, a guy in a fetish suit, or I can't remember what else I compared it to, but never a dog. It never looks like a dog. It looks nothing like a dog. The stages look really like sub-NES quality graphics. They're just awful, to the point where I couldn't tell what was a door. So I literally wandered around a dungeon I had completed for 30 minutes because I couldn't figure out where the door was. Because I just couldn't figure it out from the sprite. It's that bad. You get a map. The item is a compass. I don't know why the compass turns into a map, but when you use the compass, it's a map. And notice I said when you use it. Zelda games put their map in the pause menu, which makes a ton of sense. This game requires you to have the map as an equipped item. Again, it uses the Link's Awakening style of there. You got a whole menu of stuff, and you assign one to A and you assign one to B. You want to look at the map, you better assign that thing to a button, and then you press it, and then it pops up on screen. It's not helpful. Kill rooms. Zelda has kill rooms. What if I told you about kill dungeons? Where the way to pass through isn't to kill all the enemies in the room, it's to kill all the enemies in the floor. All of them. Does that sound like fun? No, that's not fun. It's not fun, especially when you don't know how many there are. But the one that really killed me, the one that really sent me into turbo mental breakdown overdrive, is saving. You might think, James, are you going to tell me that a Zelda clone did something with saving so weird and opaque that you had a breakdown? And the answer is yes. Yes, it did. John, have you read my article?
I have not.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to guess. What do you think saving could have done that was so weird that I had to stop playing the game for a solid minute after seeing it?
And this is what? This is saving your game?
This is saving your game. The action of saving. Very basic feature.
Yep.
Very well established.
Let's see. Maybe that you couldn't save your game without quitting?
No.
Okay.
No. Greg, you want to make a guess?
I've got to say, this is one of those things where it just seems so simple. I just don't know, what the answer is. Clearly, I need to come up with something counterintuitive, which is by definition quite difficult.
Yes. No, you're right, and that's fair. I did give y'all a hint. Yum, you want to make a shot?
No, I saw the answer on the
okay.
Discord.
Yeah. To save your game, you go into that item screen I talked about. The standard, like if you think about Link's Awakening, where all the items you've collected are on one screen. And you pick an item called Save, and you equip it. And then you go back into the game, and you use the item Save. A save menu pops up. You then save your game.
Holy crap.
Think about that. Which means you have to then unpause or you have to repause the game because you're not going to walk around with the goddamn save button.
That is insane. So the save
Yes!
item is an item that you have to equip and then use to save.
Yes!
That's terrible. That honestly sounds like something that sounds like they ran out of time to implement a real save feature.
I don't understand it. It's insane. So you can conceivably walk around with your A button just causing the map to pop up and the B button causing the save dialogue to pop up. That is a thing you can do to yourself in this game. This game is remarkable. This game, I am amazed. This is amazement, not positive. So I wrote a fairly lengthy article, which is not a recommendation. I consistently remind the reader this is not a recommendation. Not that I'm recommending it. I just want to be clear about that as well. But this wasn't a recommendation formatted article where I just kind of unravel how exasperated that game was making me at that moment in time. Like I said, 30 minutes of that first level was me trying to figure out that this thing was a door. And the reason why I couldn't is the icon on the wall, which doesn't really look like a wall, looks like a floor, but whatever, is the exact same icon as other places where it wasn't a door. How was I supposed to know that? Well, I was supposed to remember that I came in there 20 minutes ago in this big dumb labyrinth. Oh, also Merlin's in this game. It's the quest for Camelot after all. My mother's been kidnapped and she's being held in a room. Merlin is standing outside the room, giving me opaque hints and says, "You can't go in here until you get a shield." This is motherfucking Merlin the Wizard. He is standing outside the door where my mother is being held hostage. And his role in solving this problem isn't to go in there and be Merlin the fucking wizard and save my mother. It's to tell like a 14-year-old girl to go find a shield. And then go in there and deal with it. You got this. You got this.
He doesn't get paid to be a killer.
I compared him unfavorably to fucking Gandalf. It's like Gandalf thinks this is lazy. Like that's really something else. What a dumb fucking game. This game is awful. Also, it has the fonts are some of the worst I've ever seen in anything ever. I'm honestly impressed. I'm impressed.
Game Boy Color had some terrible games.
Yeah, well, this is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But Nintendo published this one in America for some reason and decided that they wanted to remind us of all that 25 years later. Don't play this game. Don't do it. Like, just don't. Like, it's free. I know it's free. I know it's free. I know you can just go in there and play this game right now if you want. You just snip, snap, you're in, you're playing. Guess what? Don't do it. Why? Why shouldn't you do that? Well, because I actually have thought more about how the service is letting me down since I played this game than I did before I played this game. This game is subtraction by addition. I've never had that. I've never had an experience where I played something I was given and felt worse about the library of the system it was on.
Yeah.
Like, imagine managing to release a game that makes you feel worse about the library. You would think, well, it's purely additive. It can't be. No, it can. And it did. What an experience.
Yeah, I mean, you could do the same thing. You could release a lot of games like that that would make you feel really bad about the TurboGrafx 16 library as well.
That's true. Like, it's just, I don't get it, man. I don't. This is, like, why? Who? Like, I theorized that somebody just found it and put it up on the service without actually playing it, because the game is bad from the very beginning. Like, the opening screen when you turn it on for the first time is terrible. This isn't like, it makes a good impression to start. No, it makes a bad impression from the very beginning.
Yeah, I got a 4 out of 10 on IGN.
And that was in the moment.
Yep.
Like, now? Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Did this come out after Oracle of Ages and Seasons?
It came out...
Oh, no.
It's close.
No,
it's before. But it's after Link's Awakening DX, obviously.
Yeah.
Yikes. Just yikes. Get this thing out of here. Nintendo, remove this from the service. But yeah, if you want to hear more, like how I compared its music, or the philosophical ramblings of a man at 2 a.m. who's been unmade by playing a licensed game from 1998, you can go read that at NintendoWorldReport.com. The article is titled... let me get the full title. An explanation and a public shaming, : what are, quote, things Nintendo owes me after Quest for Camelot. Subtitle correct. Yep. That's my week. I played a weird JRPG from 2008 and a god-awful Zelda clone from 1998. I presume that means the next game I play will be from 1988. Which, there's some good games in that year. So maybe I'll actually get to have fun. Probably not. Hey, John, what have you been up to?
Let's see. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Still playing Starfield, which is just...
How's that going?
Good.
Good.
I'm just moved a bit further into the story. Gone through the whole romance arc with your partner kind of thing. Where eventually, you get into where good books. Eventually, I think you get married. So
is that a pun or just literally?
No, literally. You can do that in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, you have like the woman that welcomes you to Constellation or whatever. There's a whole romance arc, and you have to, you can flirt with her and all kinds of stuff like that. Sort of like Baldur's Gate kind of thing too, right? Baldur's Gate 3. Watched a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3. Kind of going through that, played a little bit of it. It's that game is big.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 1 or 2, but it's really interesting because it's a game where you have to slow down, really, because you can flip between turn-based and the turn-based mode, and then just kind of free reign, kind of like walk around the environment mode. But yeah, it's just interesting doing stuff like, I want to jump onto that ledge up there. Okay. I have to move the cursor there and then choose the jump. Specifically choose jump, and then my character jumps up there. But it's really cool. It's the same thing. It has romance options and stuff. It's an incredibly horny game.
It's very
horny. Yeah, that's one of the things that people love about it.
They love you can fuck a bear. I mean, not literally a bear, a person who can transform into a bear.
Yeah. There's let's just say it gets very horny. But it looks
it starts horny.
Yeah.
And
yeah. It
it's
game looks really good though.
It's funny to see the evolution of Western RPGs, right? It used to be you see that mountain, you can go up there, and now you see that bear man, you can fuck him.
Yeah.
You can go up there as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly, and
climb right on top of him.
Yep.
There you go.
That's right. You see, now it's you see that you see that mountain, you can climb it. Now you see that person, you can mount them. Yeah.
Look,
so
mount your friends was a warning.
Yeah. So now that game looks really good. I mean, it's big. There's a reason why, with Starfield going on, there's a reason why I didn't pick up Baldur's Gate 3, because it's massive. Because you have the main quest, and then you recruit characters to your party. Each of them has a quest, and then there's like a quest that has to do with your class, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and
then you could play it again and have a very different experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the whole thing is meant to be very flexible. Just a huge map, all kinds of things to do, and all kinds of side quests. I mean, it's a game where you can spend hours investigating some dungeon or cave or cathedral or something like that, and you come to find out that it's just a side quest that doesn't have anything to do with anything. But
except itself, which is great.
Yeah, and
also there's multiplayer too, correct?
Yeah.
Because why not throw more in there?
Yeah, why not throw more in there? But yeah, it's a huge game. That's why I didn't touch it, because I've like I said, I have Starfield. I have to play Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. That just came out as well, and it's apparently amazing. It's gotten really, really good reviews. So, I mean, that's out there too. So, Baldur's Gate is somewhere in the far future for me. So,
nice.
Yeah, and I've been playing some retro stuff, just playing some Super Castlevania 4. The music for that game still amazes me.
It's great.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Better than almost every other game out there still to this day. Let's see. Yeah, mainly I like for new stuff still. And I've been playing some Monster Hunter World just for kicks.
Really?
Yeah, because the Monster Hunter World is the one I haven't really played through very much at all. So,
okay.
Yeah. Like I've played it to a certain point. Actually, it was weird. I like, this is on the PS5, and I played like, I think 40 something hours of it. Must have been on PlayStation 4, but I don't know what the deal is with that. Is if I would have had to get my PlayStation 4 save imported or something, but it didn't import anything. The PS5, playing it on PS5, I started over, which I didn't mind doing because I hadn't really played too deep into it anyways, but I figured it would have at least brought in my trophies or something. But
you would think.
Yeah, but it didn't. It was just like, yeah, don't.
It said no.
Well, but what's weird is how in the PS5 GUI it says how many hours you've played of a game. It says I've played 46 hours for Monster Hunter World, and yet when I load it up on PS5, it's like I've never played it before in my life. So I don't know where that's coming from. So that number is probably stored by the PlayStation 4 when I played it on PS4. It's stored somewhere. It's
stored in the network.
Yeah. So,
but your save is either the save's not compatible, which would be really weird, or
I don't know. I don't know. For stuff from a certain time period for PS5, it wouldn't surprise me. Because
maybe.
Yeah. But anyways, I was happy to start over again because it's funny because of how much I've played with Monster Hunter Rise. Everything that I now know about that game, I can transfer back to all of these older Monster Hunter titles. In fact, through completely legal means, I downloaded Monster Hunter for the PlayStation 2. And I've been playing that as well, a little bit, just for kicks, because I've never played it. I will say it's amusing how much of the original game is retained in everything afterwards. Like, it's really not that different. Rise has, the wire dashing and, like that kind of stuff and your Palamute, but those are the main things that they've added to that formula. Everything else is, like, when you play Monster Hunter World, outside of the scout flies that kind of show you where to go if you tag a monster, the scout flies will kind of take you to it. That's like the big thing. But I mean, the way these games play, they're not drastically different from the first Monster Hunter. I was expecting it to be a lot more primitive, but I was like, yeah, actually it's, the original Monster Hunter is a lot closer to, I mean, there's only been 5 games, right? I mean, there hasn't been that many Monster Hunter games. There's been a bunch of re-releases.
Right.
I think
we're not, depends what we count as new games, I guess.
Right. It feels like there's been a lot more Monster Hunter games than there actually have been, because there was, for the first several games, they released a game in Japan, and then it came out in the US with added content. So, like, that happened with at least the first 2 games. But yeah, there really haven't been that many Monster Hunter games. I mean, I think Rise is what, the 6th or something like that, maybe 5th game.
Something like
because there was there was like the original Monster Hunter, and then that came, and then there was Monster Hunter Freedom, I think in Japan, that came out as Freedom Unite on the PSP. But actually, no, Monster Hunter 2 did come out on PS2. But you run into that sort of stuff where there's like 3 versions of a game, where there's 2 versions of the game in Japan, and then a 3rd version that's released in the US, where it's a combination of the first 2 games that were released in Japan with some new content for the US. So it's kind of crazy. There's probably about 6 games overall, but about 12 have been released up to this point. So, but yeah, Monster Hunter World, I really like it. It's really nice to see it on HD hardware, like really like from the start. So I'm looking forward to, I want to see what they're doing, because with Monster Hunter, they are hinting at a new game coming out. Of course, there's a new game coming out, but the rumor is it may be a remake or remaster, probably a remake of the first game for like because the 20th anniversary is coming up next year. So, yeah. So I'll be interested to see. And I'm expecting there to be a Monster Hunter World 2. So,
yeah, I would think that,
because that's their best. I think that's Capcom's best-selling game now, is it not?
It's up there.
Yeah, it's like they've sold 18 million copies of it.
Yeah, I think that the challenge is always going to be how much did Monster Hunter World cost versus making another in the Rise style.
Yep. Yeah. As of June 2023, Monster Hunter World is Capcom's best-selling title with over 19 million sales.
Damn.
Yeah. And that's crazy, thinking about the franchises that Capcom has. Like the iconic franchise. I mean, I would argue that Monster Hunter isn't even their most iconic franchise.
So I think it found a lot of success on PC in other markets like China and stuff. I think that was part of it.
Yep.
But I mean, also part of it is a lot of their iconic franchises are either from an era when games just didn't sell 19 million units, like NES stuff.
True.
Or they're fighting games where they would release 3, 4, 5 versions of the game over the course of its lifespan.
Yeah.
And so that superficially depresses the count for any individual version. It's like Street Fighter 2. If you bundled together all the Street Fighter 2 sales historically, it's probably higher than that.
Yeah.
But it's a million different games at this point. I think there's like 6 versions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I'm going to keep playing it. I mean, it's a nice kind of change of pace. And, it looks better than any of the other Monster Hunter games, so that's nice.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's good, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see what else is coming with Monster Hunter. So
the future of Monster Hunter. What about the Monster Hunter Niantic game?
Yeah, I'm playing that. It's okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
what's it called? Monster Hunter
Now. Yeah, it looks exactly like Pokemon Go, except it's just the monster models on the map. Yeah, and you can upgrade your armor. I'm kind of still trying to figure out the point of it, because with Pokemon Go, at least there's the hook of filling up your Pokedex.
Right.
And you can do that with Monster Hunter Now, but it's
not really core to the franchise.
Yeah, and I mean, really, with any Monster Hunter game, there's maybe about 35 monsters. That's not the big deal. But yeah, with this, I think it's, they kind of have the concept of raids going up against, I think around here it's like Diablos or something, I think is one of the raid monsters. But yeah, I've been kind of struggling to see what the point is, because you wind up, whenever you spawn on the map, you'll see some big monsters. So you'll see they're all the low level monsters for me right now, because I'm not really high in hunter rank. But you get experience by killing monsters and collecting from material points, right? So you'll see on the map, around here, there's a park around here. So in the park, there's a couple of points where you can go and you can, mining, the mining nodes or the, plants and stuff like that. Yeah, there's that. And then, upgrading armor and stuff like that. That's how you kind of get experience points. And so, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I can't say that, I'm blown away by it. I kind of wondering. I don't really see the hook in it, but I'll keep playing it. I mean, it's really meant for. I mean, like killing a monster takes no time flat, really, if you have good armor. We're talking like 10 seconds, 15 seconds to kill a monster, so it's geared for really, really quick gameplay.
Gotcha.
But it's and I mean the monsters look pretty good. It's like totally looks like Monster Hunter branded, so it's good in that respect. I have to wonder. I'm hesitant to really get into it because I really don't know how long it's going to be around. It's just I just don't see it being a big hit. Not like Pokemon Go was. I mean, Pokemon Go. I mean, I'm sure it's not making as much money as it was. I think it's at this point it may just be breaking even. I've seen stories where I think it just had its first month that was at a loss, where its earnings went down. I think it's just had its first month of that. So, it's not.
I mean, it's been around a long time at this point.
Yeah,
mobile games don't usually last that long.
No. So, yeah, but I can understand its hook because they could theoretically keep adding Pokemon
and they have been.
Yeah.
And they do special event Pokemon, so Pokemon who are wearing clothes or different colors or super rare, but they're going to be available. Or they'll do like geo-specific Pokemon. Like for a while, if you wanted Farfetch'd, you had to be in Japan.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot there that lends to, a longer lifespan for that game. But with Monster Hunter, I don't know. I'm not too sure exactly what their plan is long term.
Okay.
We'll see.
Guillaume.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so, no great surprise, I suppose. I've been playing another freaking beat 'em up with Karen. But there's a limit to how... I'm sure there's a limit to how interested our audience can be about another freaking beat 'em up. So it's a Final Vendetta. Okay. And it does distinguish itself from the other beat 'em ups that I've been playing in that instead of having that Streets of Rage look, it has more of a Neo Geo kind of look to it. Yeah, and the reason for that is that it is a Neo Geo game. It is one of those games that the developer decided, like, you know what, we're releasing this on a Neo Geo cartridge. And so they did.
What?
So it's made for the Neo Geo hardware, and the version that we're playing on Switch, I don't know if it's emulated or if it's a port. But
when you say the Neo Geo hardware,
yeah,
are you referring to Neo Geo Pocket or the MVS AES?
Pre-order Final Vendetta for the Neo Geo Advanced Entertainment System, which comprises of a multi-region AES.
That's the AES, yes.
Yeah, cartridge playable on all Nintendo Neo Geo AES consoles.
So the AES, and John, you can probably see where I'm going with this. AES cartridges were notoriously expensive because they're massive.
Yeah, they're huge.
Okay,
they're effectively the circuit board on a cartridge.
Yeah, because they had 8 megabits of power in them, John.
Yeah.
Well,
64 megabits,
so
excuse me.
Yeah, so I clicked on the link, and it is a little bit on the expensive side. It is £329, but you can get £30 off with this item.
I'm surprised
it takes this thing out a little bit.
Yeah, like the task of making an AES compatible cartridge seems wild. We've really gone too far with these limited editions. We've gone too far.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, like it's a good enough one of those. Like it's well made, it plays well, but opinions vary. Again, one of the reviews I read was like this game is like too old school or something, like in a bad way. But personally, I really enjoy it. It has a distinction of not having a Yuzo Koshiro game. Yuzo Koshiro track in there. But they may do anyway. The music is quite good. But they might have cribbed or paid homage to some bands or some other music to get the music that they do have. So excuse, like I know, like you're not gonna relate to this because you obviously know the band that I'm gonna mention, but I didn't know the band I'm gonna mention because in Canada and in Quebec specifically, like, you know, like it's a different region. Like the radios might choose not to play certain things, or, you know, it's like how in the US, like you didn't take the Tea Party, but you took Nickelback. It's like, that's okay, I guess. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But like
I know exactly what you're. Nobody else knows what you're saying, Guillaume. I know what you're saying.
I'm just saying that the Tea Party was played a lot in Canada and in Australia, but not the US.
We're about to have an intensely Canadian moment, aren't we, John?
It's getting there. I don't know where Guillaume's going with this, but it's going that
so
direction.
I'm just trying to explain my ignorance. Like, it can happen the other way too, and so
okay, all right.
So the music in the high score screen, immediately Karen was like, "Oh, that's Belle Biv DeVoe." I was like, "What? Belle Biv DeVoe? What? Devo? No, Belle Biv DeVoe." So yeah. So
Interesting.
I'll try and play. Let me take a note here. I'll try and play the tracks one after the other, and you can tell me if they.
Well,
cribbed.
I mean, Belle Biv DeVoe had like 3 big songs.
Pretty
much.
It's one of them.
It's going to be Poison.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here is the final Vendetta high score screen.
So this is before my time because I was 3 when Poison came.
This is
out.
more like 1990.
This is like the late 80s.
Belle Biv DeVoe, I think they were around 1990.
I think Poison. I think Poison came out in 89.
Yeah.
Like I can say I have almost no knowledge here except for maybe like 1 or 2 songs.
Yeah,
you immediately.
Well, yeah. See, Poison was released on March 20th, 1990. So it's 1990.
Yeah, and that's come back around a little bit, or it shows up in movies occasionally, or whatever.
Yep.
Right.
It's one of those songs that'll show up in a movie when they're doing a scene that's like, the scene's from 1991. This is a flashback scene.
Yeah, their big songs were Poison, Do Me, and I Thought It Was Me.
Yeah, yeah. So the music is catchy, but it might also be, not completely their own. I don't know, but it's one of those. You got the big grappler, you've got the kind of quick dude, and you've got the even faster girl, and it's not a terribly long game. If you pay $300 for a cartridge of this, you're a collector. You're not gonna. I don't think you're going to get 300 pounds worth of gameplay here, of fun, But it is well made.
I mean, if you own an AVS, you're already a psychopath.
Right.
Like, you've crossed the bridge.
Right. You might be the guy who owns the CEO of Embracer, and you might have to sell off a few properties.
I need to buy everything.
Right. You might have to sell.
I need to sell everything.
You might need to sell a few studios that you bought in order to pay for your cartridge, but you're going to get that cartridge. But it's a decent enough game. But like, they're asking $30 for it. I got it cheaper on sale, and I would wait for a sale. It's not a substantial game. So that's about all I have to say about that one. The other games I've been playing, it's like how serendipitous, James, that we can,
Uh-oh.
thanks to your new business, combined with my new business, we can truly bring back Anime World Report.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Not just Anime World Report, but like Cyber Connect 2 World Report.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, because so first, a few months ago, I talked about Fuga, Melodies of Steel, about a bunch of like dog and cat children in a big tank going through, blowing up ranks after right.
Children for weapon power.
Right, you could shove a little kid in a soul cannon to destroy the boss at the end of a level, in one shot, basically.
What if I just want to do it for fun?
Yeah, but you would try to avoid that normally. So you can get a bad ending if you do shove a kid in there. But also there's other ways to get a bad ending. You don't get multiple saves, and at a certain point, the game warned me, like with this kid, like you kind of have to form bonds with the other children, or if you want to get the best ending. So the game warned me, but not precisely enough. And I'm so glad that I did look up what I had to do. Like I thought, like, because again, like in this game, there's kind of like, there's not a whole lot to it, It's barely a strategy game, and it's really just a game where you make the numbers go up, and one of the numbers that you make go up is like the relationships between the kids. And so you can, in between battles and sequences inside the tank where you can, kind of boost the morale of the kids, but also kind of develop relationships between them. You can initiate conversations between two of them. Their bond will grow, and then like eventually it levels up, and they get a new ability, or they work better together in the battles. But this kid, they just said like, yeah, work on his bond. So I tried to use him a lot and to do that stuff in the tank, but it turns out like I didn't have to. I was trying. Oh, I'm just gonna max out the bond with one of the kids in there, and that's the wrong thing. They wanted me to level up at least one level with all of the other kids, and if I hadn't done that, I would have locked myself out of the getting the good ending. So I didn't want that. I'm glad I avoided that. But the thing is, this game again, like there's not a whole lot to it. It's really just it's the dumbest kind of strategy game that you could think of. It's barely more than kind of a cookie clicker or something like that. Like there's really not that much to it, and so it's very repetitious. And when you encounter the enemies, like you've got. I was on the world, the seventh level, and I thought, like, surely there's no more than at most 10 levels in this. I'm going to get through them. But the problem is they got longer and longer. And also there were not 10, there were 12. And also I was kind of battling time because the game was leaving Game Pass. And I didn't have the exact date, but I was like probably at the middle of the month. So I was trying to finish the game before it disappeared, before I couldn't finish it. And I really regret doing that because it was just the most mind-numbing experience. The game goes on for way too long. The battles are always the same because they only have like maybe 3 types of units, and they at most have like 5 or 6 of them on screen at a time, and they cannot. That's not enough variety to have an interesting combination. Like they can't vary the configurations enough to make these battles continually interesting. So really, you're constantly doing the same thing. It always feels like you're doing the exact same thing, and I don't know why I put myself through this. Because definitely, like the game was just, the story was just getting, it starts off as this kind of weird furry alternate reality World War II things where you fight the Burmans.
And CyberConnect 2 loves that. They've done that gimmick a bunch of times.
Right. I'm pretty sure it shares a world with like Solar Robo or whatever.
The Tales Concerto series, I believe, as they call it.
Right. So, but it just so it started there, but it just gets dumber as you get through, further in the game. Turns out that you were after, or the Burmans were after a demon / tank, like a AI thing. I'm not sure.
CyberConnect 2 on its AI bullshit again.
Yeah, the ending seemed to no one. Yeah. Anyway, maybe I'm not gonna say it, but it was very dumb. The ending implied certain things, and it was weird because the ending seemed to at some point flash forward like 600 years later and seemed to set up the sequel. Yeah,
what?
Like 600 years after those kids did the thing with the tank. You kind of get like an epilogue. And like someone is commenting, and like it seems to set up the sequel. And the sequel showed up on Game Pass, and I wanted to see. And again, I don't know why I did this to myself, but I wanted to see did they do anything to the sequel to make it more interesting. So I started it, and they completely ignored that epilogue. And again, like you just get back with the same kids, different giant tank. And you're just doing the same exact thing again. Can
you stuff more kids into cannons?
No, it's only one kid at a time. It's mostly the same kids, but they've lost their special abilities that you leveled up before. So and also they look slightly different. They fresh off the ending of the first game. Like they're no longer kind of poor orphans. They're I guess slightly more cared for orphans or non-orphans. I'm not sure, but anyway, so now like you got new costumes for them. That's basically it. And I just learned looking through this Wikipedia page that they announced CyberConnect 2 announced that they plan now this thing as a trilogy. I cannot believe that they're going to make a third one of these, but I guess I should.
Really?
Well, yeah, I guess I should believe, because doing the same thing over and over again, as long as it sells well, seems to be CyberConnect 2's whole thing.
I mean, they put out 7 fucking dot hack games on the PS2 alone.
Right, like
it's amazing.
Yeah, so they know how to milk something.
Oh yeah.
So there's that. I'm not going to play more Fuga 2. I don't recommend that game at all. But I also have been checking out on the Xbox, so this is not super relevant to the Switch, but I have been checking out Asura's Wrath.
Oh.
On the 360. A CyberConnect 2 joint for Capcom. I'm not sure. I was not super into the demo when I played it back when it showed up on the PlayStation 3, but seeing it on sale on the Xbox, I was like, you know what? Maybe, like this game would be such a meme if it had come out at the right time. And we certainly have talked about, in the demo, there was the whole thing where like you fight the giant Buddha-like boss, where like he gets bigger than the planet, and he's gonna kill you with like his index finger.
He's gonna poke you.
He's gonna poke you, and as he's poking you, like there's like like the re-entry into the atmosphere. His finger is like burning, and you're just a little dude.
And you have to mash.
Right, and you have to mash a button, and somehow you take him out through like his index finger.
Because you're a god.
You're not quite a god. They're trying to make themselves gods. But you are something. Yeah, some demigod. But also you're pissed. It's called Asura's Wrath. And your guy is pissed. This is a
game about the power of being angry.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And it's also a game about turning, I guess, Hindu religion. I'm not sure. I should have looked this up earlier, but turning some Asian religion into a sci-fi epic.
Yeah, I mean, if you can,
right.
Why not?
Yeah, and this game is not based on a property. You know, it's not based on an existing anime, but it tries to be an anime so much. Like, it has all the... When I say tries to be an anime, I mean, like, the presentation is all about looking like it could be a show. It could be an anime. You're watching something like Fist of the North Star.
Because the gameplay is so slight.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to the gameplay. It's mostly quick time events, like press the button at the right time to make the thing happen. There's some light, move around and punch enemies that are insignificant. Yeah, until you can raise a meter enough that you can do the QTE. That's basically all there is to it. But outside of that, like, the game looks really good on the Xbox anyway, the Series X. Like, the upscaling really, I don't know if the game looked that good originally, but it was
visually very impressive.
Yeah. And so it holds up, unless you're one of those people who fixates on, like, the ground texture or something. But outside of that, the characters, the architecture, like, it's really imaginative looking world, and with like these kind of Buddha looking weird terracotta robots.
It hybridizes certain amounts of Indic architecture with some degree of East Asian Buddhist influenced architecture and art and artistic styles and even iconography. So, to your question, the Asuras are their Indic religions broadly. So this show up in both Hinduism and Buddhism. They're basically demigods,
right?
And so it does pull from those influences and sci-fi's the shit out of them, basically.
Yeah, like basically, like, load up the mantra cannon is something that you hear when you when you're playing this game. It's bonkers.
So stupid.
It's very stupid. But you know what? It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this. Like, I'm in the right mind frame to be enjoying this.
So did your version come with the DLC?
Well, I eventually bought it.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like, I think I did the smart thing where, like, I got it. It was on sale. I got the game, and then there was a sale on the DLC, and I got the DLC. So I'll have the complete, because like, that's one of the reasons why I didn't really bother checking it out back in the day. It was like the big thing was that the ending was basically locked behind DLC, and that sounded shitty. And also back then, there was kind of people were fed up with QTEs. And now I'm more open to them, I suppose. They're not as bad as I expected.
We talked about games feeling dated, and I played this game pretty close to when it came out. I talked about it on the show. Like, I basically just talked about how dumb it was, because it really was. But I really didn't have a great time with it, because we were fed up with QTEs, and this is from the people who popularized the form.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes above and beyond, like, what was even acceptable at the height of QTEs. It's like, what? This is an entire game of this shit.
I don't know. I enjoy this more than I enjoy shaving myself and calling for my son Jason.
I don't know. Calling for Jason is a lot of fun. Do you enjoy it more than fighting giant bug monsters in the middle of your office? If we're going to talk about David Cage QTE games.
Yeah, I don't recall that, but
that's Indigo Prophecy.
I did not stick with that one for very long, but
it gets really stupid.
Yeah, but like this, I don't know. It's just the right kind of stupid. It's very, it's a looker. It's very spectacular, and I'm kind of in the mood for that. I also got recently through Game Pass like a 2 months trial for Crunchyroll, and so I'm watching anime I'm
Oh, God.
watching shonen. Like I'm.
Oh no.
I'm really. Just give it to me. Num num num.
Oh, just pump it in.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Like I
Asura's-
finished whatever they had of Jujutsu Kaisen. That was really good. And now, like, Karen and I have gotten addicted on My Hero Academia somehow. And we're gonna keep watching it as long as it remains funny that there's a guy shooting masking tape from like his elbows.
Oh, it gets weirder. Don't
Yeah.
worry, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is something like deeply anime about Asura's Wrath where they lock the ending behind DLC, because there was a stretch of time where anime would do like a season. They'd do like a 24 episode season or a 22 episode season, and then they would go off the air for a while, and then they would do like a Golden Week movie
Mm-hmm.
that had super important plot elements, and then they would do the next season and just jump ahead, and suddenly if you didn't go see the fucking movie, there's this character you've never met before, and all the characters have new powers, and there's no explanation why they're in this new place they're in, because your ass didn't go see the movie.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is very on point for this.
Yeah, but like this is like reproducing like every chapter, or whatever they call them, episodes, I guess they're calling them episodes. So every episode you see the opening credits, like animation by this studio, and touch up animation by CyberConnect 2, and directed by so and so. So you've got the opening credits, you've got even the I forget what term they use, but like the interstitial kind of like Asura's Wrath, title cards.
The eye catches.
The eye catches for if there were ads.
Yeah,
on
essentially.
TV. So, anyway, so it's very much like watching an anime. So I'm into it. It's fun. I'm playing it very slowly. I've been playing, like one episode every 2 days or so.
Okay,
That's the right
fair.
pace to do it.
Yeah, it would grate on you if you play it too fast.
Yeah, probably. But yeah,
Cool.
that's about it.
All right. Well, welcome to Anime World Report. Greg, would you take us home, please?
Sure. So, mostly talk about F-Zero 99 over the past couple of weeks. So, yeah, in fact, just shortly before we started recording, they put some of the Queen League tracks sort of in the rotation, and then had the kind of Grand Prix mode switch to the Queen League stuff. So, yeah, look, it's only been a couple of weeks, so obviously it wasn't that long. But again, as I noted before when we sort of covered this in the Nintendo Direct, my experience of, playing a lot of Super Nintendo F-Zero and being kind of frustrated at the fact that you couldn't freely play the many of the tracks beyond the Night League because, for whatever reason, they didn't let you do time trials on those. It was being sort of replicated in this fortnight where exactly those tracks that were available originally in Super Nintendo for time trial were the ones in rotation, and all the other ones weren't. And, you ended up, racing on Mute City a lot, racing on Big Blue a lot, and, you got some of the others, but, so it might have only been 2 weeks, but I think it's before time to kind of stir some extra tracks in, and just nice things because I just don't know them as well, and obviously I raced on them, doing the Grand Prix in the original F-Zero, but it's just not the same as kind of learning it, for doing time trials. And of course, the way F-Zero 99 works is that when you race on something once, it then becomes available for practice, and you will finally, after all these years, more than 30, be able to do time trials and stuff like Mute City 2, Red Canyon, etc. The dream is real. But it's good to have some new tracks in. But even before that, I've been checking in with it regularly, and getting not loads of time in, but still, like kind of the way they set it up, so that obviously you have all these sort of meters and numbers going up, right? That's the coin of the realm with this sort of game, to try and keep people checking in every day for bonuses, and just keep those meters and levels going up and whatnot. But with the sort of rank system, the way that is, because obviously there's a lot of races where you're gonna have no shot at finishing first. Like, I mean, I have finished first in a single race, but like a lot of the time it's not going to happen. So obviously for the bulk of the players in any given race, it's going to seem pretty much out of reach. So what they've done to kind of try and maintain, people's interest, I guess, to a fair extent, is tie this kind of ranking system to, like, you will start a race with the predetermined rivals based on, players who are of a similar kind of rank to you. And then it's just like, well, if you beat any of them, your kind of ranking sort of meter will go up a little bit. And if you beat all of them, it'll go up quite a lot. And in that way, I've been able to get up to like A+ now without doing too many races. It's certainly, when you see some of the totals on the leaderboard, it's like, good Lord, are they stopping to go to the toilet? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, how much time must be being spent, especially when there weren't that many tracks for the first couple of weeks. Like, the repetitiousness, right, would have got to me, comfortably. But, like I said, they don't make it so that you feel like you need to be doing that sort of stuff to be, like, progressing or getting stuff out of the game. There's enough sort of layers of, kind of meters going up, like little rewards and stuff, like extra decals and colour schemes for your cars and, your little ID tag, borders and custom elements with that, little badges you can put on it, very much like the ones that you have, like, for Splatoon in that case. Like, just all these little things that obviously it's all ultimately very trivial, but just stuff that you can get that doesn't involve just ceaselessly playing it. And it's a nice thing to dip into here or there occasionally, maybe, once a day, once every other day, something like that, because for me at this point, it is still kind of just a nice thing that it's like, oh yeah, there's a semi-new kind of F-Zero thing to check in with and mess around with. And yeah, having spent obviously a fair bit more time with it compared to when we last spoke about it, when it'd been out for a matter of a few hours or whatever it was after the Direct. I think there's quite a few sort of reasonable kind of design things on show in terms of adapting the Super Nintendo game to this online, kind of 99 format. In particular, I get the Skyway boost thing is pretty important, I guess, because, when you think of the original F-Zero in particular, but probably any of the F-Zero games really, especially like compared to, say, Mario Kart, catching up is not easy. It's, right. It could be downright impossible, because, it's just a case of, like, there is no, blue shell, there's no red shells, there's invincibility stars, all this stuff. You could boost like a crazy person, and that's going to put you at risk of dying. But even then, you may not really accomplish that much without, like, just getting, some good luck and, you're taking the corners just really well. So with the Skyway thing, it's got a little bit of an inbuilt sort of way in which, cars towards the back have something of an opportunity to move up the field, in the sense that, all the collisions, all the kind of combat stuff that's going on with cars using the spin attack in front, to defend themselves, to attack, that creates this sort of stream of gold sparkly bit. If we wanted to tie the Pikmin universe to F-Zero, we could call it Sparklium, I think. Yes. And when you are at the back, sometimes you get a bad start, on that sort of, because the way they've done it is, because I don't know whether we mentioned this last time, each of the tracks it has 4 laps instead of 5, as it did in the Super Nintendo original, but it has a pre-first lap kind of onboarding section where everyone is spread out, and then we funnel down. And that can go a number of ways, you know what I mean? In terms of, sometimes you get yourself near the front and, you haven't lost much health and things seem good. Although usually most tracks have the pit lane pretty early on that first lap to refill. Like something like Deathwind would be an exception. But other times you might get bumped off, like, from using a boost pad and then you're behind and everything. So sometimes you really get to see, okay, like almost everyone's in front of me. And this huge stream of the gold sparkly bits just comes towards you to build up that Skyway boost. And then, of course, when you deploy the Skyway boost, not only are you going fast, but you are on another plane above all the cars. You can, sort of see them all crashing into each other, all the carnage is going on there. And you can move up the field very substantially, but also without the cost of everybody's bumping into each other, depleting their energy, which, as it's adopted this, mode from F-Zero X onwards, that is depleting your boost. So, that not only being able to move up the field, but to do it with boost still in hand to possibly even make further gains if you could do it well. It does keep it interesting. Even races that do seem a bit, of a lost cause can just turn on a little bit of a few sequences, just maybe one of those golden bumpers, as they call them, the kind of backmarker cars emerges. You get like a bunch of the Skyway boost energy in a big chunk. You activate it at a particularly good time, which could be, maybe you've just like taken a turn that's like really sharp and just lost like all your acceleration, all your top speed, and you've got maybe driving one of the cars that doesn't have good acceleration, like a Stingray or Wild Goose. Being able to hammer that Skyway boost right there and then, and just kind of completely nullify that kind of downside that you would normally be presented with could be a huge boon. And then the other thing that could really swing a game suddenly is the KO reward stuff, which is kind of interesting. So it's somewhat, even though a lot of the spinning and stuff really you might want to reserve for being defensive, it offers rewards for killing other cars, which are quite substantial in that, if you get a KO, it will extend your health bar, essentially, which, by extension, is also maxing out your boost bar. So that could be a huge deal. And it also, if you kill certain cars under, I think like not the bumpers, not the back markers, but it's killing other kind of, proper contestants will actually refill your boost. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you've got into this sort of, mode right at the end where it's like, basically, I've spent it all. It's gone. I cannot boost again, otherwise I'm gonna blow up. And all of a sudden, somebody just kind of is cutting across you and you instinctively spin to protect yourself and you kill them. And then it's like, oh god, yes. I've got all my boost back. Go. Just boost all the way up that final straight and gain a bunch of places and stuff. That's a great feeling of just out of nowhere, like it can turn and everything like changes and you gain a bunch of places. And if you're doing, a mini prix, as they say, where it's a 3-part kind of little tournament, or a Grand Prix, then this has further dividends because your sort of your max health being increased continues into the subsequent races. And so, if you could get an early KO, one of the early tracks, that could really help you out over the entire, 5 races in the case of a Grand Prix. So that is, it's encouraging you to kill people, but God, it's risky. And of course, in the Grand Prix context, you could have, 3 good races, you're on the 4th one, and if you die then, you're just disqualified and that's it. You don't get to see the last race, which I think the way they're doing it is the final tracks of each of the cups, leagues, that was in the original F-Zero is essentially locked behind being the final race of the Grand Prix mode. It will not come up in circulation, at least at this juncture. It will not come up as a pro track when they have one of those events. It's just that if you want to see this, you've got to get to the end of a Grand Prix mode, which means you've got to get to be the last 20 cars that are eligible, because they eliminate you just by position as well as people getting killed. And, it can be quite tough just to get there. And when you get to that last race, then there is no onboarding section. It just starts lap 1 to 4 and all that. And again, I mean, like, Silence, which is the last track of the Night League, is quite a step up from the rest of the Night League. There's a lot of sharp turns. There's a lot of, potential, especially with just 20 cars, which is a hell of a lot more than, the track was originally designed for. It can be carnage, and then, only so many are going to finish. So it's, with that sort of setup, to get there, it kind of raises the stakes a little bit, even though obviously it's all, a load of nonsense in the end, and it gives it a little bit of a sense of occasion. And, so that is, quite a lot of fun. I've managed to finish second in a 5-stage Grand Prix. I doubt I will ever finish first. It occurred to me at the time.
Better than me.
It occurred to me at the time, like, it was one of the first Grand Prix, because you got to earn, like, tickets to do it, and, like, in the really early going, I think, obviously I hadn't had the opportunity to stockpile tickets, and, you sort of have, I've got enough to do a Grand Prix, and it's active now, so let's go. And then, like, the internet just disconnects, and you're like, oh, well, they're gone, that's eaten, that's good, that kind of stuff. Now I've got a stockpile of them from having, kind of checked in and used them, played the game regularly over the past couple of weeks. It's not such a big deal, but yeah, obviously that is somewhat annoying when it happens. That feeling of kind of just raising the stakes that little bit, and kind of that last track being kind of, even though again, Silence was a time trial track because they had all of the Night League ones in the original Super Nintendo, so I do know that relatively well. The others, White Land 2 and Firefield, it's going to be interesting getting to play those in that context, because they are pretty crazy as it is, of my memory recalls, especially Firefield. There was a lot of crawling to the finish line in that, so with just like blinking health and stuff. So that is going to be interesting when they get around to the King League or whatever. So I've enjoyed it so far. As I mentioned at the time, this is the best time to play, when there is a lot of people playing it, when, there are updates happening and stuff. And like I said, with the Grand Prix stuff, that where I finished second, that was probably already my best chance, because already, people know the tracks better. It is getting a little bit more, taken over by just experienced players, so it's like,
we use the term, it's getting very sweaty, the population of this game.
Yeah, I'm sure the fact that, maybe they'll do some stuff with, here's some new tracks or whatever else. I think, some of the data mining around the game has suggested there may be more modes, even like a survival mode of some description, perhaps even the possibility for some tracks from the Satellaview kind of expansion might be making their way back. We'll have to see. Obviously, inferences drawn from data mining don't necessarily have to pan out. So, but it would be cool to see, as the original F-Zero tracks are all well and good, certainly, but some of the other tracks that they have designed for fundamentally similar games, the GBA games, those Satellaview expansions or whatever, that would be nice to see, and certainly something they could do if they want to keep providing this with content for some time to come. Because as much as you might wonder how long it will last, especially when it, as we said before, it doesn't have the cachet. F-Zero does not have the cachet of something like Tetris. They're still doing kind of new events for Tetris 99 to this day. They've got a Xenoblade 3 one, I think, that just started. So perhaps if people play, they will be able to sort of just keep giving players a reason to come back for something, even if it's cosmetics or whatever whatever else. But yeah, I get the feeling that it's only going to get harder to actually win anything. But luckily, it is still, it's still pretty fun to, do your best, beat your predetermined rivals, and get that rank going up a little bit.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of listener mail. So stay tuned. We return to you with listener mail. Your emails, send them. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Don't mind the fact that I just hiccuped in the middle of the email address. You do not have to put that in the email address. It would be extremely hard to onomatopoeia a hiccup into an email address, so don't try it. It's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. You can send your emails. We might use them on the show. We've actually got a decent number of emails in the inbox. It would help if we got through more than 2 a week. We won't this week either. But, we're going to try to get some more in. But I'm afraid to say when, because that will definitely doom it. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the first email. Mihai writes, "Hi, RFN. I hope you're all doing well during the current feast of gaming options that we now enjoy. In episode 661, the crew ultimately concluded that due to the limited real estate on the Switch jewel case, it would not support the totality of self-gratification the Game of the Year messaging would bring, so therefore, it would never come to the system." Wait, did I miss the name of the game? No.
I don't know what the context is here.
There's no subject to that sentence, but I assume there's a game that you said would never make it.
If dare I suggest, we could have gone back to episode 661 to determine what is being referred to.
Well, even better. Maybe the next sentence will tell us. Lo and behold, here we are in October of the year 2023, and we will see the trilogy come to Switch. Okay, now do we know what we're talking about?
Arkham's, maybe? There's an Arkham trilogy.
Yes,
it is coming in October.
Tomb Raider. Yes!
We've talked about this.
You've nailed it. It's Tomb Raider, the game we talked about last week, which was definitely not 661. Oh, Lord. All right, anyway. Let me continue the email. Because 661 is 200 episodes ago. This got me thinking. What unannounced AAA game or collection from previous generations will next come to Switch? Consider we now even have Red Dead Redemption and The Witcher. Will it be Cyberpunk, Fallout, Jedi Fallen Order? While confoundingly a retro game collection like Disney Afternoon Collection remains absent, what other retro games or collections are inexplicably absent? Atari Anthology? StarCraft 64? Well, the list could go on and on, couldn't it? Now, as alluded to in the subject of this email, I have a simple question, perhaps of singular importance, for this seasoned group of gaming, entertainment, and general pop culture enthusiast podcasters. Where do you get your ideas from? With eager anticipation. All right, so there's two parts to this email. So I guess we could start with the first one and use them to illustrate from whence our ideas spring. The head gold mines, such as it were. What AAA game or series of games from previous generations, or I guess from this generation, will make an appearance unexpectedly upon the Switch platform? And what anticipated retro collection are we missing out on as a consequence? Or at least, maybe not as a literal consequence, but as a cosmic balancing of scales.
No, I mean, the Disney Afternoon Collection is a very good example. You've got to think it's just something sort of very simple, probably, with that, in terms of it's just, the deal that was done to get those games re-released, because they were obviously based on, TV shows at the time. The Capcom developed games based on Disney properties, was very specific about what platforms would be involved in the deal, and that predated Switch, and didn't have any kind of hooks in it to extend the deal without having to go through some sort of renegotiation process, which evidently no one is willing to do. It's not considered worthwhile to do that. So we just trapped with something that seems like, a very natural extension to the various other, kind of Capcom and or Disney kind of stuff that is on Switch, and we're just not going to get it. It would seem like.
So I didn't realize is Atari really not on Switch?
Oh, well, Atari Archive is the most recent.
Yeah, it's on Switch.
Okay, yeah.
I was wondering perhaps if that was the previous Atari collection.
There's another Atari collection.
Atari Anthology.
Though. Yeah, and that is on the Switch as far as I know. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. But I get the point. I get the idea. So I was thinking through like what game. I mean, to me, there's almost certainly going to be an Assassin's Creed collection on Switch. I think they've kind of implied it already.
Well, the Ezio games are there.
Yeah, I think the pirate games, the one that they made exclusively
I think
for
they might be there as well, right?
Okay.
Something other than Ezio is out as well. I think it might be like, what would that be? Yeah, 3 and whatever. I can't remember now.
Black Flag was the other one. The one they made just for the 360 generation of consoles when they had already moved on.
So, something other than Ezio collection is there, but I can't remember which it is because the Assassin's Creed 2 is the only one I've ever played, so that's kind of like that resonates with me. A lot of the others kind of blur together.
Gotcha. All right, well, if that takes away my idea, I thought I was like, I'm so smart. I've got one coming in that's like off the top rope, gonna win this thing. Nope, negative. Strike out.
But Bioshock was similar as well. I mean, I guess the thing is that, there was a point, presumably as it's alluded to in the email, like 4 years ago, where, you might have been wondering, like, these sorts of games, like the Arkham games, like, they could be a good fit, why aren't we seeing them? It just kind of feels like the Switch's lifespan, especially with the way things went with the pandemic and Animal Crossing and getting this sort of big, kind of, boost for, in sales and maybe forestalling any kind of change in hardware has given, that extra time for some of these publishers to just take another look and say, yeah, well, that install base is so huge and the software sales are still, kind of healthy enough that actually, yeah, we think this is worth doing, because obviously there was a fair bit of skepticism before the Switch came out, I would imagine, amongst publishers for understandable.
Justifiably.
Yeah, after the Wii U experience. So you did not have a number of the big Western publishers, and even some of the Japanese ones as well were pretty sort of circumspect about what to do with this thing. Maybe dipping a toe in the water. Thinking of like Capcom, just like, he's Ultra Street Fighter 2. He's something. But it's not like some great big commitment by any means. And then when it demonstrated that it could perform in the marketplace, okay, well then we start putting these things out. But the amazing success and the longevity of it has given much time for all sorts of publishers to kind of change their minds, essentially. And again, Red Dead is certainly a kind of good example of, like, you might have thought, yeah, the time for that would have passed if probably, if it was ever going to happen, it probably would have happened before. But no, it's here. We do have to think that we are near the end now, though. You really do get that feeling. So there isn't too much more time for some of these things to come in, that haven't yet arrived.
Did Switch ever get the actual Mass Effect games? Or did they just get...
No, that's a good call.
Legendary Collection?
Yeah, so like Wii U just got 3.
Yes.
At the same time everybody else got the full collection for the same price.
It was Mihai pointed out EA still hates Nintendo, so
yeah, the Legendary Edition never came out on Switch.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that's a decent candidate. There's probably, like, it should definitely be doable. Like, those games played on the 360.
Yep.
Especially if they're planning to reboot the series again, which I have to imagine after, we'll say their last adventure in Andromeda. They probably do want to reboot that series a little bit. Just a little bit.
Also, presumably, they're working on the next Dragon Age. Maybe that series is not as popular as Mass Effect, but, it doesn't make sense to me that it's not on Switch.
It doesn't. And so I could see... I think the popularity issue is probably it, though, is that those Mass Effect games not Mass Effect games, those Dragon Age games are gigantic. And they probably would cost more to port, but the only other one I could think of is, why hasn't there been a Black Ops and Black Ops 2 collection? Not just for Switch, but just in general.
Yeah. Probably because those games make enough money just still being sold. Right?
Are they still selling Black Ops and Black Ops 2?
Oh, yeah, dude. Those things are, yeah. You can still buy every Call of Duty game.
So, they
don't take those things away. They're there forever, and they are rarely on sale.
I was thinking, all right, you release a collection, and Black Ops and 2 are up-res to 4K on the other consoles, and you could drop that collection on Switch. Because that feels like a nice, natural collection. So I started this looking at the list of 360 top sellers. Do you want to be real sad? Real fucking sad? You want to know what the number one seller on the Xbox 360 was?
On the 360, oh man.
This will depress you.
It must not be a Halo game then.
Oh no, the Halo's not even in the top 6.
Really? Wow.
The top ranked Halo game is 9 at Halo 3.
Wow, that's crazy.
With GTA or Modern Warfare, that would have been the two guesses.
GTA 5 is 2. Modern Warfare 3 is 4.
What the heck is number 1 then?
All right, I'll give you number 3, which is Minecraft.
Okay, I guess it feels later to me than the 360 generation.
Number 2 is a very late game for the 360.
I think with Minecraft, I guess it kind of went through phases, but it was big for a long time. Oh, yeah. So I was probably just kind of I only probably became more aware of it later than that, but I'm sure evidently it did pretty damn well.
Number 1 is Connected Ventures.
Because it's a pack-in?
I mean, because it's a pack-in with Connect. You had to buy a fucking Connect.
Yeah.
It sold 24 million units.
And I assume there was, a Connect and hardware bundle at some point that also would have had Connected Ventures in it to
there
pad,
was. Yeah.
To pad the stats as well.
But I could because I figured, okay, where are the Arkham games? And they're around 16. So they're actually pretty far down. Would Microsoft ever consider porting the cursed Halo collection to anything else? I say cursed because it took them the better part of a decade to get that thing in good shape. I don't think so.
No. Why? There's no point. I mean, it's already on Steam. What do they care? That thing has a massive audience on Steam. So
number 21, by the way, better selling than Gears of War 3, Sneak King.
Oh my god.
Considering obviously,
well, that's because it was so cheap, right?
Yeah.
Considering Nintendo, they did help sort of make this one happen, so it doesn't speak to the developer the publisher in question actually kind of independently necessarily we're willing to do it, but obviously we got Skyrim right at the start, but we haven't had Oblivion, which presumably was also a pretty major 360 game. If you kind of
sold very well. Oblivion was 38, and Skyrim was I saw it a minute ago, 6.
Yeah, I mean, one trilogy that I'm wondering, or just why there are no games of a trilogy. There was, but the Prince of Persia games, right? Because I know
the original ones, yeah, there was
3D
a trilogy. Yes,
yeah, there was originally on the PlayStation 3. There was a trilogy with Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones.
Yes, and 2 of those games are very good.
Yeah,
and one of them is Warrior Within.
Yeah, before they rebooted it and ruined everything.
But so actually, I would defend that 360 game that came out. That was a reboot, but that was a one-off. There was nothing else in it. It was just that one game. It was still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean there hasn't. It's crazy, but there hasn't been Prince of Persia game. I mean, they have like a 2.5D one coming out, but there hasn't been a 3D Prince of Persia game since 2010.
Well, because they transferred all that attention to Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Like that 360 game that's more or less forgotten, which I think is just called Prince of Persia. I think they just did the whole title reboot shit.
Yeah, that's 2008. And then there was the Fallen King.
I don't even know. I think that's like a mobile game or some shit.
It might be DS.
It was DS.
It was a DS game.
Oh, it's that game. Yeah. I could absolutely see that 360 game coming back because
there was a unique Wii game around that time as well.
There was. Yep. I don't remember what it was called, but yes.
It was the same, the Forgotten Sands.
Oh, okay.
But it was a different game.
Yeah, you're right. It was a different game. And it had lots of Wii remote stuff in it.
It was good.
People seem to like it. All right.
I guess considering they had was it the Wii version of Force Unleashed that came back? Like, on that basis, it would sort of make sense to bring back the Wii version of Forgotten Sands.
Yeah. I mean, or both. Bring them both back. But put them in a collection. Call it the Forgotten Sands collection. Done. There's your bundle. We're not going to get that, but that's an option. What about Nino? Did Nino Kuni 1 did come out? I can't remember if it came out
1 and 2 are both on Switch, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at the PS3 collection of stuff, and it's a lot it's very first party heavy, as you'd expect. Metal Gear Solid 4.
Well,
that game isn't available on anything.
Yeah, that's weird for just not coming back at all. But I mean, are we expecting that to be in the sort of second volume of the Metal Gear? Because it is the one that's coming out in October is listed as Volume 1, and that's covering Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and then you also, some of the pre-Metal Gear Solid stuff, like the MSX game and the NES game, Snake's Revenge, so, it's all that stuff, but that leaves, presumably, 4, 5 Peace Walker, to a...
And the PSP games...
Yeah, was Portable Ops.
Portable Ops
was before Peace Walker. Yeah, so
Portable Ops, and then the two weird ones, the card games.
Yeah. So you've got some stuff for a second volume. Will that arrive in time for Switch, or could it be at another, on the next Nintendo platform or whatever? I don't know. It depends on how they're kind of staggering those out.
GTA 5 Prologue is the number 8 selling game on PS3. That's dire. That's a fucking demo.
That's crazy.
That's rough. No Sneak King on this list. Can't handle it.
I mean, obviously, with the recent remake, it would be presumably, clearly far too advanced. But in terms of the actual original games, the Dead Space games, or certainly Dead Space 1 and 2, would have felt like a pretty neat, maybe, if they were coming out right now, in October, pretty much, for your spooky season, would have been pretty good. Because obviously you've had, your RE4 version on there, so you kind of feel like, and stuff like the Resident Evil Revelations kind of hate you 1 and 2 as well. Like these kinds of action third person games can work perfectly well on Switch. And then you've had like the first person horror stuff like Alien Isolation. Dead Space, I played both of the first two. I quite liked them for, that kind of game. They had a pretty good atmosphere and stuff. I mean, if you've watched certain horror films, it's really obvious where they're taking their inspirations is very, very heavily riffing off Event Horizon, which is a fun movie. I don't know that it's necessarily the most bulletproof, excellent movie to be taking inspiration from, but those were good games. And then everybody seemed to really despise the third one, but I didn't play it for myself, so I can't speak to it.
Anything else y'all could think of?
Well, to me, every single absence kind of doesn't make much sense. I think I had a very naive idea about games that would come to Nintendo once they would go with an HD system. And I'm kind of puzzled that we didn't get to see like Bionic Commando Rearmed or stuff like that. You know, like games that were an XBLA that just made sense to come back to a Nintendo system at some point. And I thought for sure, yeah, sure, that's going to happen. But I guess those games were sold for $10 and they were not, they must have been greenlit not because, oh yeah, people would remember fondly the NES game and they'll play this. No, they'll play this and then they'll go buy the $50, $60 boxed game that we are making this. Yeah, basically. And that game turned out to suck. And so and
they
it didn't sell well.
They did do another Rearmed, right? So
they do,
which I don't think is as well liked on there. But again, like they could have been bundled together on Switch. So if you're worried, like about it being, like insubstantial as just like one game. But yeah, I really like Rearmed. I played that. I already spoke about. I'd like to have Bionic Commando come back in some form. We'll be talking about the Switch Online or Virtual Console type stuff. But yeah, Rearmed was good, and it seems like a kind of natural enough fit. But yeah, I think he almost got it right to some extent. It almost feels like it's just slipped down the back of the sort of Capcom corporate sofa because it was associated with that kind of initiative that Bionic Commando quote-unquote AAA HD game that was a flop. And it was similar with Dark Void as well, wasn't it? The Dark Void Zero existed on DSi and that people liked that, but then the Dark Void itself didn't seem to land nearly as well. I mean, there are some sort of things that I would primarily associate with that kind of era of the 360 and arcade games and all that kind of being a big deal, like Super Meat Boy, the original, is there, for instance. But you do kind of feel like there probably are quite a few more. But what about Geometry Wars? I mean, we had Galaxies on DS and Wii and all that kind of thing, but just straight up, Geometry Wars 2 or 3, that on Switch would have been wonderful, I would have thought, but it's never happened, has it?
No, but I don't even know who owns the rights to any of that stuff. Like it's strongly associated with Microsoft, but Sierra published Geometry Wars 3.
The third one, yeah.
And like isn't it like the Battalion Wars guys, like what is their name, Kuju or something?
Kuju, eventually.
Yeah, I think that they made the Geometry Wars. You just named it the Wii one.
Galaxies, yes.
Galaxies, right? And DS, 3DS.
There was a DS Galaxies, yeah. It was a DS and Wii, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all over the place, I don't know, but yeah, like I wouldn't say no to them.
So, and the other part of like, here's the collection we're not getting. Now, part of the reason is some of these games are. So, I actually went through looking at like compilations, and really, unless you go back into the past a pretty sizable way, like pre-Switch, there really aren't that many. These games have made their way to Switch, these bundles, because people have recognized that, one, the form factor is particularly well suited for a lot of older games because they weren't meant to be super long or super involved. And so it's a good home for them. And two, we talked about it, the install base is so goddamn high that the license holder and the team who put the thing together, there's too many stakeholders who are interested in getting that money that there's going to be somebody to push hard enough to make it happen. So instead I was thinking about like games that are sequels or have a direct sequel that could be bundled together in an effective way. And the one that jumps to mind for me is the two, well, it's a GameCube and Wii Fire Emblem games. Because, of course, they are a direct sequel to one another. Radiant Dawn, and I can't remember what the other one's name is.
Path of Radiance, yeah.
Path of Radiance and then Radiant Dawn.
If I remember correctly, just to sort of bring forth the full context of the sort of weird non-re-release history of these games, you must remember that Wii U had digital Wii games as part of the eShop. And these did not feature. Certainly not in the European store, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think they featured anywhere.
No. And now part of it is the current Fire Emblem audience would see these games and go, what the fuck? Because they are difficult, and they don't have a lot of the things people have gotten used to. And Nintendo's eagerness to touch things before they re-release them, I think, would probably prevent them from being willing to do this without at least trying to, for lack of a better word, fix them. Does that make sense? Like, they would look at them and go, oh, we'd really rather take a swing at making these things more approachable to an audience because that'll increase their sales potential.
Yeah, more of a, kind of an Advance Wars, like, let's do this as a new retail game where you bundle them together, you give them some sort of aesthetic makeover, you might change some things with balance. Or I don't know that they did that with Advance Wars, for the record, but this is where I'm kind of diverging a little bit, but just that as a kind of starting point, and then maybe you could also make some tweaks to the balance, or add some things or whatever you might think make it a bit more palatable or interesting to the Fire Emblem fan base and market that exists today. Yeah, I could see that, certainly, but it's still, when you consider the desperation on Wii U to have anything, you know what I mean? Like, that is, I'm sure, why we did, we talked about this with respect to how long they got around to, how long it took them to put any portable games on NSO, and then juxtapose that with the Wii U, where it's like, GBA games, DS games, go! There was this bit of just like, let's try anything we can from, sort of back catalogue to put on there to try and just gin up interest, to give people, the few dedicated sort of followers that we do have as Wii U owners something else to spend their money on. And even in that environment, you didn't release those Fire Emblem games? That's baffling to me.
Yeah. It's almost like they just don't like them. And that Wii game is super hard to get a hold of. Like, crazy difficult. They didn't re-release them, even though in the Wii U we had already gone through the Renaissance with Awakening. Like, the franchise had turned the corner. You would think maybe they could say, there's revived interest in these games. We could honestly, they could probably put together a Fire Emblem collection. But they won't, because they want to put them on the NSO service. It
must be said, I suppose, the tricky part, as you said, is that because they are closely related in one is a sequel to the other, maybe if the Wii game had been, if both games had been on Wii, they might have done it. Maybe they didn't like the idea of like, well, we're not doing GameCube games on the eShop, so we can't do the first one. We don't really just want to do the second one. Maybe that would, having not played them, I don't know how indispensable, it is, to have played the first one in that regard, but maybe that was part of the reason, because, it would be, I think, even harder to understand if they were both Wii games.
Yeah. To continue the original question, where do you get your ideas from? I'm looking at my video game shelf right now. That's where I got that. That's where the Fire Emblem came from. I read it off my shelf.
You thought it was going to be
that one.
Sort of some sort of treatise on the nature of consciousness, perhaps. The notion of the bicameral mind. You know what I mean? Where we almost receive our ideas like orders from the divine. But instead it's just you looking at yourself.
There are moments where it feels like the show shares a single brain cell, and it's just like something has exploded.
Yeah, exactly. One.
And we just one track around this transcontinental rhombus that we have put together, and it's just like the same idea is just essentially running and gaining momentum as it goes around. And we just start riffing on something, and it'll just go. And when you listen to those, you're like, I can't believe the riff went that long. I can't believe it got that far. Like, it starts here and ends way the fuck over there. And it's like, well, if you were to just tell me the starting and ending point of that riff, I would go, no, that didn't happen. You did not get from there to there. But no, we did.
Well, I mean, you'll have to go through. There's various waypoints that we always have to go through. We always have to probably go through Charles Bronson at some point.
Yeah,
Schwarzenegger
eventually.
at some point.
No
We
one
can
goes
try
through
to
Charles
go
Bronson.
through. Yeah, exactly.
That's how you wind up dead.
Yep.
I think that part of it, and there definitely, speaking for myself, I have different modes on this show and in my writing. And in my writing, I tend to go in a very different way where I'm much more interested in drawing illusion and parallel and trying to play with concepts and put things in front of people where it's like, I'm doing something in this that's not what I am obviously stating that I am doing. Can you see it? Can you see the stupid thing I'm doing behind the stupid thing I claim to be doing? And that's more of just like, the ideas just come from, sitting there and thinking about what would be the funniest way to make this work. What would be the funniest way to convey an idea? Because there's always an idea. There's a real idea. But in podcast form, right now, like this, we're having to be fairly extemporaneous. We can't sit there and go like, wait, do I have two distinct platonic illusions in this article? That's got to go. I can't do two of these. It's too obvious. I got to limit myself to one, which is a real thing I had to do this week. I can't put the allegory of the cave in there and also the debate on whether writing makes people's brains lazy. It's not. Can't have them both. Got to pick one. So I picked one. But here it's, it's really, the idea comes from the other people present. And so when we have different organizations of the show, different people around, or different configurations, probably the better word, the ideas form differently. And I think there's probably, I could see someone saying there's something metaphysical about that, about the undetectable non-sensory connection between human minds or some bullshit, especially if my name was Hideo Kojima. But in practicality, I think it's just input in, input out. Like, there's different, a certain amount of what we do here is probably to try to get a rise out of the other people who are doing it alongside of us. So, I joked that I cannot do an episode with singularly John because it's going to be an uncontrollable mess.
It will go a certain way.
Yeah, of id. And somebody said, actually, no, you did one with him about 3 months ago. And I'm like, well, was it? Like, yeah, it was pretty much the mess of your ids going wild. It's like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I can never do it, but I will make it a live show. That was an interesting choice on your part.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, because the live show is already somewhat unfiltered.
Yeah, I guess so. And also, you're not quite alone in that case, right? Because you're having call-ins and stuff, so you didn't necessarily outright violate it. But still, it seemed, especially because it was relatively spur of the moment, it's pretty ballsy. I thought
our entire audience were our chaperones for the evening,
pretty much.
But like, you can go back to the telethons and where they came from. We talked about that just recently, where the idea for J&J Dream Factory came from. We were doing research, which I know sounds improbable, but I read a lot. I know a lot of these guys read a lot, and we noticed a trend, and that trend was very funny. Mm-hmm. And things like that stick in your brain. And when sometimes you have something like that sticks in your brain, and it's come up in this conversation we're talking about. EA doesn't like. They made FIFA finely. Not FIFA.
Yes, it's going to take a while, isn't it? That is the thing.
They made. Oh, you want $1 billion over 4 years? How about no dollars over forever?
Yeah, it's one of these things, isn't it? It's like I with the FC, I totally get it from the point of view of like, look, FIFA has done a lot to compromise that brand with its conduct. Like, I completely understand them telling them to go whistle, if they've got some completely exorbitant fucking sum in mind. But on the other hand, it will be like a wrench, for people to kind of, it's been there, I had the first FIFA game on Mega Drive for Christmas the year it came out, it's been a part of, especially, if you live in a country where soccer's just baked into culture, basically, the game became baked into culture, perennially in the charts and everything, so, it's going to be a little bit tough in that. Presumably that, other than just, outrageous, shameless greed is the reason why FIFA thought they could ask for that much money. Is that, well, nobody just, walks away from a really successful brand. But then obviously the current situation with Twitter has proven, well, some people do. But whether that's advisable is another matter entirely.
So the report was FIFA wanted $1 billion over 4 years, which is insane.
Yeah, which it makes me laugh because, you have their greed, but EA's greed also makes them not want to spend that kind of money.
Well, it's the immovable object and the unstoppable
versus
force.
the immovable greedy object versus the irresistible greedy force.
EA just went out and made deals with all the club teams and the players, and they're like, we basically got all the content anyway, fuckfaces.
Well, the thing is, they've probably been gaming this out for a while, is the reality of it. I'm just like, just thinking, like, if we had to do an end around, we wanted to do one, could we do it? And they've been preparing themselves for it. And as far as that sort of thing goes, they executed it a great deal more successfully than the European clubs did when they tried to do it around UEFA. And create the European Super League, where they presumably had also gamed that situation out for many years and had used it as a threat to try and get UEFA to, make the rules more in favour of the bigger established European clubs. And then when they finally decided to turn that threat into reality, it blew up in their face in a matter of, hours, essentially. So,
it was amazing.
Points to EA. For being more effective than the clubs that they've actually currently do business with.
Cartel Buster Electronic Arts. I mean, in EA's defense, let's say they had paid the $1 billion. What percentage of that money was going to go into the pocket of corrupt officials? 80%?
Oh, I'm sure it was just a matter of good conscience on EA's part, yes.
I'm just saying, like, they would say, we're going to put this into our funds for developing the games in Africa. Why does that include them buying 800,000 copies of your book that's written in Dutch?
The mind boggles at what they would have done with that money. I think that is an entirely natural reaction given the history of that organisation, the recent history, certainly.
Yeah.
It's just, look, like I said, they've probably been thinking about this for quite some time. You get a demand like that and it's like, all right, we're going to walk away. But, we don't know entirely, more successful than the European Super League. Yes, they've already crossed that very, very low threshold. How it will affect their earnings and stuff, we'll see. I do wonder, not knowing terribly much about FIFA, but it just seems like maybe, the ridiculous amount of money that EA was making out of this Ultimate Team stuff, did that just get to a point where FIFA are just looking at how much EA's making at it and saying, we need to, get back to the kind of a bigger piece of the pie that we had before, and they just thought that they had all the leverage they needed to do that, and then EA, clearly thought otherwise.
Don't think you hold more cards than you do at the negotiating table is the lesson to be learned here, because $0 is a lot less than $1 billion.
Yeah, in the Discord, we're asking, what does FIFA bring anyway to, as a license to the games?
You can have a World Cup mode. That's it.
Right. Well, my suggestion was that they bring the corruption. So, it could be good for a game about the corruption. I was thinking maybe
if you could have some sort of, finally, imagine what the British charts would look like if you could have a game that synthesized GTA and FIFA.
Yeah,
it's like the criminality of GTA, but you just kind of working that in through the institutional corruption that is FIFA.
So this isn't even the first time you've suggested a FIFA-themed video game on this show, because of course we have Blatterhouse.
Blatterhouse, yeah. Well, it could be if you had your GTA type of FIFA game, it could be a little bit like, Yakuza as well, isn't it?
There you go.
Blatterhouse is like an actual arcade game in fiction that people go and play in this GTA FIFA game.
So in the Street Fighter Kids, or whatever they called that game, Virtua Fighter Kids, or whatever that game was called I think it was a GameCube game. It was a world where Virtua Fighter is just a real thing that happens, and it was just like, oh yeah, no, these are fans of Virtua Fighter. So if you were to come up with like the FIFA equivalent, then yeah, Bladderhouse could be just just a regular arcade game. Like, why wouldn't they have made a game about Sepp Blatter? He introduced soccer to Africa, if you ask him.
If it's anywhere near as good as the film, that's the sort of puff piece film that came out with Tim Roth,
my God.
Which I have not seen, but it's one of the worst reviewed things I've ever read about. I can only imagine the Blatterhouse game would be a real quarter muncher.
I do think though that Sega should go for the FIFA license. Because, of course, they have the Football Manager franchise. It's one of the most successful brands Sega owns. And right now, they're probably hurting. So they can go to them and say, hey, look, we're going to do it. But we're going to introduce rank corruption and oil money and petrochemicals into the Football Manager franchise. We're going to make this like actually managing a team now.
They just laid people off, right? Didn't they canceled that Creative Assembly game?
Yeah, I mean, Sega and FIFA, a partnership that's made to be. This could be Super Game. Yeah. You could have corruption in the Fog Gaming, John. Remember Fog Gaming? Remember the idea that your arcade centers could be server farms right as they are about to sell off their arcade business? Remember that? Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, that's a kind of dysfunction that FIFA would look at and go, ideal business partners. Perfect. And
Colin Yui.
That's a collection we're not going to get on Switch. I tied it back.
Well, you've been talking about Kojima, made me think, I don't know whether this could be in the future, because it's not Metal Gear Solid per se, but considering how many sort of Platinum games are on Switch, if you could have Revengeance, couldn't you? Because the fan, but I guess it's a legitimate thing to say, with all the Bayonetta games on there and Astral Chain and whatnot, like, the Platinum fan base is on Switch, so put that game there.
I thought you were going to go with the Lords of Shadow games.
Oh, yeah. The problem is like the first one was alright, but apparently, like, again, I've not played it, but the second one was some sort of calamity that just, like, completely killed off everything, so it might be a bit awkward, I guess. Like, but you do get some strange things, like the way that, like, the original Dark Souls is on Switch, but not any of the sequels.
Nope, not 2 or 3. I was wondering if that was a good option.
And they're not like Infamous or, like killed the company or anything. Well, they did. I mean, Mercury's Steam survived, obviously, but they just didn't. Their relationship with Konami did not survive that game, seemingly.
But I was told by Kojima's press person that he was very involved in that game.
That's right. See, I was forgetting that, but that's true. They did try and sell it on that basis, didn't they? It's just like, look, Kojima's in those days before they fell out, it was they were very happy to tell us that Kojima had his fingers in all the pies.
God, them walking into that stage while someone was talking and just walking to their seat and then saying "fuck all" for the presentation was so just, I don't give a shit about anybody here. It was so obvious. Him and his entourage. We are the King Dick of King Dick Mountain. And 5 years later, out on his ass. We did that one too, apparently. I'm just gonna take credit for it now. We did that one. Him and he's on the list. The regicide is real.
Yep.
That's a callback. Any other games you want to add or any insight into our thinking process?
What thinking process is
right.
what I was kind of wondering.
Yeah,
because that's the whole point. Like, where do we get our ideas? Well, I talk about the games I play, and then you guys send questions by email.
Yeah,
and
that's a big part of it.
Yeah,
RFN so we don't have to do.
So we don't have to do the actual work.
Yeah, my mind is fully bicameral, so I just take orders from a sort of man behind the curtain that hates me.
Oh, okay.
A man-child, maybe.
I'm right
Probably.
Here.
Yeah.
I'm right fucking here, Guillaume. Jesus. Read the next email.
All right. So Thomas writes, So, as we know, the Switch was the first to make strides in "don't eat this" technology with the cartridge coating. So, bitterant, yeah. So, what do you think is the most commonly eaten game accessory or most tasty looking? Your local, it's saying your local weird idea haver, Thomas.
So speaking of where do you get your ideas from, it's almost like these two were paired together by a conscious hand.
Well, maybe I should get this out of the way right away.
Go.
Like the
you
boring,
said you had an idea.
The boring answer is that there are edible games apparently already, but not the ones that I was looking for. So I've got this New Scientist article from 2018. A computer game's edible controller lets you play it with your gut. I don't have access to the article, but it says the next frontier for video games could be internal organs. Players of the Guts game must fight off a virtual parasite by causing changes to their gut as measured by an ingested sensor. So that's a thing.
Are we sure this isn't like some sort of attempt at viral marketing for Existence that's just hung around on the internet for like 20 odd years?
I thought this was like bloodvertising. It's tapeworm-vertising. We're going to find out this thing has tapeworm eggs in it, and this is really just an attempt to do a medical study on some kind of anti-parasitic medicine that people are taking for COVID now because they're fucking lunatics.
So that was one of the articles that I got from typing, trying to Google or Bing edible game controller. The other one was how someone made a motion sensing baguette controller to use with Overwatch, Widowmaker in Overwatch. And so someone did that in 2017, and there's video.
But why? I guess for the gram, although this would have been before that. So, I guess. You know what? I guess.
See, my answer for this is a limited edition console that I'm sure I've brought up on the show before. The GameCube in Japan had a limited edition pinstripe unit to celebrate the Hanshin Tigers baseball team winning the Central League, I think their league is, or whatever, back in 2003. Yes. Which, I thought about it because they recently won it for like the first time since 2005, I think, this year. But yeah, because it's, kind of baseball themed after their uniforms or whatever, it had pinstripes. Which is a pretty common feature of baseball uniforms, if people don't know. Obviously, like, most famous would be like the Yankees or whatever. But as a result, it kind of looks like a very large cuboid boiled sweet. So it's not edible in any way, but at least it kind of looks like something that tastes nice. So if you're, in the situation where the killer from Seven is forcing you to eat a games console because that's what he's upset about now, or whatever, then I guess I'd probably try and chow down on that Hanshin Tigers GameCube because it's got something vaguely appetizing about it compared to like, I don't know, original Xbox, anyone? No thanks.
Just the original controller. Just the Duke. That's like an entire day's worth of food. So I thought about this, which is probably not safe. The caloric, I was trying to figure out what the caloric value of plastic is. And the answer is effectively 0. Because your body can't digest it. And you don't want it to because it's full of chemicals. That would be bad. So you're going to pass it. So whatever you eat's got to come out the other side, more or less in the form you took it in. So you got to keep that in mind. So you don't want something that's going to cut you all up inside. That's going to go poorly for you. I like that this has turned into what people have eaten by accident, the most presumably children, and I'm turning it into a dietary advice segment. So this is going well. But if you were to puree it, like really put it in a blend, like one of those industrial blenders, and really just absolutely turn that fucker inside out. What you want is something that doesn't have a lot of silicon or boards in it, that's got a high percentage of things like wood and plastic. Because the silicon and stuff, like, that's going to fuck you up pretty bad. Things that you might just pass, okay, that might be better. And your body might actually make it a pass at digesting the wood. Of course, we don't have the capacity to break down plant cell walls. That is a feature we gave up. It is why we have some vestigial organs, actually.
Yep.
So you're probably not going to get very far into it, and they're probably full of lamination anyway, so, it's mostly glue. But I'm thinking you want the least silicon you can possibly ingest.
So it's this the wood grain VCS? Or?
Exactly. So we want something that you're not going to eat the whole thing anyway. It's a lot. It's meal. You're dividing it up into meals. So you want something that you're going to get some caloric value out of. So maybe some of that wood will break down a little bit. But there's so much goddamn plastic in those things for so little chip space. Like if you actually open one, it's pretty small. But I could do better than that. The TG16. The TG16, if you actually open a TG16...
It's all ear.
Yeah, it's just nothing in it. It's a goddamn empty shell. Because the parent system from Japan, the PC engine, is very small. But Americans would look at that small system and go like, that's... Size matters.
Just, go puny banner on it, I guess, Just apparently Americans all just think like the Hulk, apparently.
They would try to give it pills to stimulate additional growth.
Perhaps some sort of super mushroom that could do such a thing.
So if you want to avoid consuming silicon, but you got to eat a sizable percentage of the system and satiate hunger, but probably not actually satiate, give you any kind of dietary value because it's fucking plastic. TG16, way to go. I'm going to guess it's got very low lead content. We know it's mostly hollow. So you're basically eating plastic that's non-lead paint. Older systems, there might be lead in that paint. You got to be careful. So I think that's the safest console for you to eat. That wasn't the question. And that goes back to the previous question of where do our thoughts come from. And the answer is about one sentence ahead of what my mouth is saying. That's where they come from. So popping out of my brain. Most likely to be eaten. So the reality of the situation is since the video game era more or less came along, it's post let's make toys designed for kids to choke on them era of the 70s. So there's not a lot of things that are mouth fittable. That was kind of the reason the Switch had to have bitterant. Its cartridges were so small, you could. So the answer is probably the Switch cartridge because they actually don't all have bitterant on them. I don't know this from testing. I just know this from it having been reported in the past. I've never licked the Switch cart. I'm not Jeff fucking Gersman, who did it on day goddamn one. So it would be something that had small enough to put in your mouth, because even Game Boy carts were pretty big. You wouldn't have been able to swallow them. So I'm going to say something smaller than a game. I'm going to say Who carts. They were around long enough and in such quantity that you could probably have found cases of someone in Japan swallowing PC engine Hue carts. That's my best guess. John, what console or game accessory makes you just famished?
Famished?
Yeah, you look at it and you go, God, my stomach.
I gotta think one of those colored N64s.
The semi-transparent ones?
Yeah, those
the
ones
iMac
were also
ones.
the yellow Pokemon one was always probably kind of tasty.
Do you want to eat Pikachu?
Yeah, it was like blue
an animal.
with a Pikachu, on there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, John Lindemann wants to eat Pikachu, ladies and gentlemen. And that's how we're going to wrap the show up.
Yeah, that's one day when because Ash is out of Pokemon now, right? Like the anime. So I don't know what this means. It's Team Rocket needs replacing because if they do, I think John has just filed his resume. Essentially, you don't want to capture Pikachu. You want to fucking cook him and
I
eat
want to
him.
cook him and eat him.
Team Gourmand over here.
Actually, I didn't give my answer for the tastiest looking console, but
yes.
I regret not getting a new 2DS of the what was I can't remember the color they call that, but the orange one. It looks like
Oh yeah.
Whatever the regional name is for you, like creamsicle or Ravello or orange.
Candied almost.
Yeah. So it looks delicious, and I wish I had gotten one.
It looks delicious. I'm gonna say least eaten is Virtual Boy. Look at that and said, "What
probably.
What
How the heck would you fit that in your mouth?
The Lynx, that'd be a bit of a tough one. The original version of the again, a lot of empty space in there, but still.
Yeah, you'd have to cut it up.
I got to think if whether or not original Game Boy cartridges were also bitter.
It's just kind of making me think of like some sort of Stalker / movie where every kill is someone trying to make someone eat a game system. It's there've been like so Saw. Many. Your torture movie, something
Can we
like
call
that.
it Munch?
There's been so many of these formula movies. Like they must have been run out of ideas several years ago. I don't know how they haven't come around to this yet.
The villain could be Casey Munchkin. Be amazing.
Oh my god! All right, well that's the end. That's the end of the road. I cannot proceed. I can proceed no further. Greg.
Yes.
Music.
James.
Oh shit! So I sent Greg a couple examples of music from .hack GU collection last week, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So the same composer basically worked through all 7 PS2 games and was involved in the project intimately, including I don't think she wrote any music for the anime, but she was involved in the whole planning process. And so themes move between the shows and the games and different generations of the games. And just like the narrative has knit these things together in sometimes opaque ways, the music does as well. So character themes, character melodies of characters. As these characters appear multiple times over a decade window, they might develop secondary themes or a different theme because their identity isn't necessarily established. And at some point you start picking up, components of their old themes because now we're slowly making clear who this person is. The track I went with is from the 3rd game called Dimming Dawn. It's a piano piece, where there's 2 melodies running against each other. And then there's an accompaniment melody that runs on the left hand. That it's a very somber piece. It plays a couple times where the players have effectively made their move against what appears to be effectively divinity and the end of the world, and have basically had their hand slapped. They are challenging nature, and nature wins that encounter. And so they're basically back to square one, or they're in a worse place than they started. Or they've made progress, but ultimately it amounted to nothing. They haven't solved the issue. And at the end of the song, as it slowly winds up, it brings in a melody around like 4.5 minutes into the song, which is the theme of the NPC representing effectively divine power from the first series of games. It's her theme, rendered on piano, but as somber. Because the whole premise at this point is that she's fucking gone, and the entire game is falling apart in her absence. So even though it sort of raises the tenor of the song, because the song's very morose at that point, it's still clearly reflecting her absence, and how that's left the entire world behind as a mess. It's really well done. It does a nice job sort of moving with the plot, and it's a nice component of when you have one composer run a series for that long, they can effectively integrate into the plot and also into their old works in a way that has a certain organic component that rewards people who have been there the whole time. That's it. And on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.